Good morning, Facebook. Happy Monday. Here we are in the middle of June, and another edition of Nutrition News is coming your way this morning. So, just before I get started on this topic today, which is the surprising problem with calorie counting and why I'm not a big fan of calorie counting to begin with, I just want to give a shout out to all of our members who joined us on the weekend, Friday night. As I mentioned last week, Friday night we had our big social event to celebrate the end of our 8-week challenge here at Fit Body Bootcamp that has been running since April. We handed out several prizes. We had a lot donated actually from the community, which was awesome. Almost everybody there in attendance walked out with a door prize. And we also handed out $500 to the winner of our 8-week challenge. And you may have seen his story up on Facebook on this page already. We did a video Friday night and then posted a picture of it this morning. So congratulations once again to Lauren, who lives in the Clinton area and comes in for our 6 a.m. session very consistently, almost daily. And he walked out with $500. You can read his story on our Facebook page or watch the video from Friday night as well. We also had a second and a third place winner that we acknowledged that night as well, Teresa and April. And we acknowledged everybody because everybody was a winner in one way or another, and everybody saw success and everybody made progress towards their fitness and fat loss goals. So that's ultimately what the goal is that everybody makes progress in the areas that they want to. I'm confident that everybody did. And of course, now everybody's asking when is the next challenge. So stay tuned for that. Give us some time to kind of wrap up this one and get ready for the next one. Stay tuned and you will be the first to know when it is announced publicly here on Facebook. So today, probably a bit of a surprise coming from a fitness facility and a nutrition coach maybe, that I'm not a big fan of calorie counting, and I'm going to tell you why. Calorie counting is an inexact science at best. Okay, there's a lot of room for error when it comes to calorie counting, and I find too that it can become a bit of an obsession. It can become somewhat of an obsessive practice where people are getting really, really, really wrapped up and married to the numbers and forgetting the big picture. Or not even really understanding what the numbers mean. For example, you can, like if you decide that, you need to have 500 calories, let's say 500 calories for lunch. Well, you can get that 500 calories from a cheeseburger and fries, right? Or you can get that 500 calories from, chicken and sweet potatoes and broccoli and, a completely different setup. Still 500 calories. So for me to say, or for you to say to me, that you had 500 calories, let's say at lunch, so you're under your calorie goal, well, that really tells me nothing, because where you're getting those calories from, the type of food you're putting into your body, means a lot more to me than just the number of calories. Okay? Calorie counts are imprecise at best. So a lot of people, have you ever even wondered, when you look at a label and it tells you how many calories are in it, where they even got that number from? Like, who decided that? Where did that come from? The calorie counts on food labels and in databases online or whatever are averages, first of all. They're averages at best. This whole process of counting calories began over 100 years ago in a laboratory in a completely controlled environment done by, a group of scientists. And those numbers have stood over time. They've never really been updated. They've never really been changed. And they're in a completely controlled environment somewhere else, like not in southwestern Ontario. So that doesn't take into account where your food came from, how long it has been since it was, like if it was an apple, let's say, how long it's been since it was picked, the soil quality, for things that are grown in the ground, obviously the soil quality of the ground, so many different things. If you've had it, on your counter for 2 weeks versus eating it that same day, it doesn't take into account the size either, right? Like when we're talking about an apple, if somebody says that an apple is 93 calories. Well, you can get an apple off of a tree in your backyard, and it's a completely different size than an apple that you get at the store or an apple that you get at the market. So to say that all apples are the same exact number of calories is inaccurate. Never mind all the different types of apples, right? So I hope that makes sense. It's the same with, even if we're talking like carrots, for example, a cup of carrot sticks. Let's say somebody said that a cup of carrot sticks is 50 calories. If that's what it says, or if that's what you're reading somewhere, know that that's an average. That is an average. Some are lower, some are higher. So already there's room for error there. There's a margin of error there. So it could be the true calorie content of what you're eating is often significantly higher or lower, because everything on that food label that's been prepared is an average at best. And then it comes, then we talk about meat. So it could be red meat, it could be white meat, it could be fish. Still an average. And again, it depends. Was that fish caught, in Lake Huron? Was it caught, or was it farmed in Vietnam? How was that fish farmed? Or like how, what was it fed? What did that fish feed on? Because whatever it ate is what you're eating. So to say, that all trout, for example, is the exact same amount of calories, you really, how do you know that? Like, you're just taking somebody's word for it. And it really depends, again, on the size of it, where it came from, the quality of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to make sure that was clear right off the bat, that very first off, these numbers were created over 100 years ago in a controlled laboratory based on a certain size. So it's an average at best, because it could be bigger, it could be a smaller portion. And the quality of the food matters, how it was produced, what it was grown in, or how it was farmed, or whatever it is. So keep that in mind, number one. Food companies can use a lot of different methods, like I think there's at least 5 different methods to estimate that calorie count. So, and actually the Food and Drug Administration allows inaccuracies of up to 20%. So 150 calories could anywhere be, anywhere from 130 to 180 calories. So it's inexact. It's an inexact science at best. Another thing is, we don't absorb all of the calories that we consume. So some food that we eat goes right through us undigested, and that varies from person to person and from food to food. So just think about that, right? Like that some of the food that you eat, you don't digest very well, whereas the next person might, or it comes right back through you right away, or undigested. So to say that everybody is consuming the same amount of calories from that one food, your body isn't going to digest all of it, and it isn't going to digest it the same way that the next person is. So that is inexact as well. Fiber-rich foods are digested differently than others. And again, we still have that range of error, that margin of error that's allowed. So we really aren't sure. It could be anywhere. It could be any kind of difference between you and the person beside you eating the exact same amount of food, the exact same food. Your body's going to digest it differently than theirs based on the bacteria in your gut and just the way that you digest food, and any food insensitivities, or allergies that you might have. Okay? So that's another thing, is you don't digest it the same as everybody else, and you don't even digest it the same from one day to the next, right? Depending on how you're feeling, or if you're ill. So keep that in mind. How you prepare your food changes how many calories it has. Cooking your food generally makes more of the calories available to be absorbed, and food labels don't always reflect that. Okay, so an egg, let's say an egg might, you might read, or it might say somewhere that one egg is 47 calories. But then when you cook it, maybe it's 74 calories. Maybe it goes up because you're going to absorb it better, so your body's going to take in more calories. So that's already an increase of 35%. Okay? If you have a steak, right? Your raw steak, it comes and it says that it's, 200 calories or whatever it is for that serving size. Well, then when you cook it, it's more easily absorbed by your body. And so that's going to change how many calories you're actually taking in as well. Not counting if your body actually absorbs it well, not counting how that steak, so how that cow was farmed, what it ate, how long it's been from, butchering to you getting it, and then how long it sat in your freezer. So is it still as good quality as it was when you bought it or you got it? All of these things make a difference, okay? So this is huge. Chopping, blending up your food, even if it's raw, can also increase calorie absorption and throw that number off. So this is another reason why I don't take a lot of stock in people telling me how many calories they've consumed in a day or from a certain food. So I mentioned it before when I was talking about absorption of calories. Your gut bacteria can increase or decrease how you absorb calories and the number of calories you absorb. So there's different types of gut bacteria. So I'm going to read this. People with a higher proportion of Firmicutes bacteria, for example, absorb an average of 150 more calories per day than those with a higher proportion of different type of bacteria in their gut. So that makes a difference as well. And then the other thing is, people aren't really great as a whole at determining portion sizes. So studies have shown that people mismeasure their portions or, kind of guess wrong about 2/3 of the time as to how much they're actually eating. So it's really easy to accidentally consume more or less calories than you think that you are. So if you're just eyeballing, a tablespoon, let's say, of peanut butter, right? Well, is it a level tablespoon or is it a heaped tablespoon? That makes a big difference. Pasta is another one. I don't know how many of you, you think you're going to put so much pasta in the pot and then it's a whole lot more than you intended it to be, but you're going to eat it because you cooked it, and cooked spaghetti the next day isn't awesome. Cheese is another one that's pretty easy to mismeasure. Especially depending on how you cook it, if you melt it or if you don't. That makes a difference as well. Things like quinoa or rice that grow as they cook, that can be completely mismeasured or misconstrued, and you may set out to eat a certain amount and then you end up eating less or you end up eating more, and not a lot of people take the time to go back and rethink that and remeasure that and recalculate how many calories they actually had. So putting it all together, why I don't take a lot of stock in calorie counting. They're imprecise at best. We don't absorb all of the calories that we consume from day to day or from person to person. How you prepare your food changes how many calories are in it. Most people are not great at eyeballing portion sizes or are not consistent day after day after day when it comes to doing that. So the way that I look at it most of the time is it's not worth the work. It's not worth the math. Certainly for me, for those of you that know me, it's not worth the math to try to figure out all of that work. And really, what does it tell you? Right? What does it tell you? And I know a lot of people that come in here and I need to eat 1,200 calories a day in order to lose weight. And that's what they tell me. And that's what they read in a magazine or in an article somewhere. And it doesn't take into account their size. It doesn't take into account their activity level. It doesn't take into account their age, what their hormones are doing, their sleep, their stress levels, whether or not they are pregnant or breastfeeding, which is a completely different conversation that we can have another time. But for an article or for something that you read to say, that you need to, in order to lose weight, the 1,200 calorie diet is best for you. How can anybody writing that article anywhere possibly know enough about you to determine that that's what's best for you? Okay? 1,200 calories for somebody who sits all day, is sedentary, has a desk job, or is at home most of the time and not very active, is completely different than is going to, affect somebody completely different than somebody who works a very active job, somebody who's on their feet all day, somebody who is, never sits down. And it's also very different from men to women because their bodies, their hormones react differently and need different amounts of calories just to survive. And the other thing is we burn calories sitting still. I'm burning calories just sitting here. You're burning calories just sitting there. You burn calories while you sleep. So to be able to tell me exactly how many calories you burned in a day or how many calories you ate is imprecise at best. How can an app possibly know how many calories you burned at your workout or how many calories, just by typing in, I did 30 minutes of calisthenics today. It really depends on your intensity level, your gender, what type of exercises you did, how many rests you took while you did it, the conditions under which you were working, like was it hot, was it cooler out, how much did you have in your system to begin with, that kind of thing. So calories, to me, I don't put a lot of stock in and I don't pay a lot of attention to. What I am more interested in is the type of food that you're eating, how often you're eating, and the quality of the food that you're eating. So to tell me you had 1,200 calories, well, you can get 1,200 calories of fast food, but that doesn't mean that you're going to lose weight, right? Whereas you could also get 1,200 calories from the market, from the grocery store, preparing it by yourself, like on your own, whole food sources, and then you may have a bit more luck when it comes to losing fat. Now, a lot of people still want to know, well, how am I supposed to judge? How am I supposed to know, how much food to eat at a time if I'm not supposed to count calories, or you're not advocating counting calories? Then give me something else. So here's another option when it comes to portion control. So calorie counting is a form of portion control, right? There's another form of portion control where you don't have to constantly be measuring or be counting or be doing math in your head, especially out in public. All you really need for this is your hand. Okay? So most people think controlling their portions means counting calories or measuring on a scale. There is another way, and maybe this will work better for you. And this is just using the hand measure system. So your hand is proportionate to your body. Its size never changes. It's always with you, making it the perfect tool, really, for measuring food and nutrients. Very little counting required. So when it comes to a serving of protein, what we recommend here, the system that we go with, is a serving of protein is the size of the palm of your hand. And that's for women. For men, it's 2 palms. 2 palms is a serving of protein for you. A serving of vegetables is the size of your fist, or for men, 2 fists. A serving of carbs is 1 cupped handful, or for men, 2 cupped handfuls. And then a serving of fats, healthy fats, is the serving size of 1 thumb. And for men, it would be 2 thumbs. So you can do that. You can use that method to build up your plate. Okay, so for men, 2 palm-sized portions is equivalent to 40 to 60 grams of protein. For women, 1 palm-sized portion would be 20 to 30 grams of protein. For vegetables, for men, it's 2 fists. For women, it's 1 fist. And I'm not really going to give you numbers on how much you should have because really you can't overdo it when it comes to vegetables. So load up your plate with vegetables, and I'm not going to say anything about that. When it comes to carbs, depending on what your goal is. If your goal is fat loss, for men, 2 cupped handfuls of carbs is about 40 to 60 grams. For women, 1 cupped handful is 20 to 30 grams. And that's for fat loss. If you want muscle building, you would have those carbs more often throughout the day. If you want fat loss, you'd have them less often throughout the day, based, again, on your activity level. And then healthy fats for men, 2 thumb-sized portions is about 15 to 25 grams of fat. For women, 1 thumb-sized portion is about 7 to 12 grams of fat. You can do all of that. And then men that do that, eating 3 to 4 meals like this, like I outlined, are going to get enough calories, the amount of calories that they should have to reach their goals. And then women eating 3 to 4 meals like that, using their hand, are going to get enough calories, the right amount of calories from the right amount of food that they need without having to worry about the numbers and the tracking and the counting and all of that. If you're more active men do best, eating more often. Active women do best eating more often. For women, 4 to 6 servings of each food group per day. Men, 6 to 8 servings of each food group per day if you're active. If you need more food because you are a bigger person, or you're not feeling satisfied, or you don't eat much throughout the day, you're very active, you're trying to gain muscle, and you're not getting those type of results that you want, then we add more food to what you're doing. If you need less food because you're smaller in stature, you're feeling too full when you eat more frequently throughout the day, you're not very active, you're trying to lose fat, and you're not getting the results that you want, then we would start by removing some of those, probably start by removing 1 cup handful of carbs for the men and half a cup handful of carbs for women, or maybe half a thumb of fat or a thumb worth of fat. So this hand system, this building your plate based on, the hand size portionings, it's just easier. It's easier than counting calories, and it's pretty much as accurate. Okay? Pay attention to the results, adjust as needed, but then I and you know exactly what type of food you're eating, and you don't have to worry about the numbers. What you're eating, what you can see, the food you actually put on your plate and put into your body is so much more important than how many calories it's worth. I have people coming in here all the time telling me or asking me about a question of a food because it's this many calories, or this is okay because it's this many calories. Never mind what it's made of, the ingredient list, the chemicals that it's full of, the fillers that it's full of, the artificial this, that, and the other. But because some label somewhere said it was under 100 calories, it's good for me, is what they think, and I disagree. So that's the way that I feel about counting calories, and it's a controversial topic. You may feel the same, you may not. That's how I feel about counting calories. I'm curious to hear your comments below. I will say too, it does work. Counting calories does work. I just don't feel it's sustainable long term. I don't think you should have to count and do math every time you want to eat. Okay, so if you have a very strict program that you're following for a short amount of time, great. But long-term, lifetime, long-term sustainable life skills kind of thing, I don't think that's realistic. I think using your hand and figuring out your portions that way is a much better system. But again, always, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I'm also curious to hear your thoughts about other topics you'd like to talk about. I actually got a message late last week asking me to talk about artificial sweeteners. So that's on my list of things to talk about. I'm curious to hear if you have others. This is Monday. I'm about to coach our 12:15 session, so I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for joining, and I will see you again next Monday. Bye, everybody.